Every night, without exception, you vanish. Not just your body, which falls limp on the bed, muscles slack, breath deepening into rhythm, but your awareness itself dissolves. You slip beneath the surface of this world, and everything you believe to be true, the room around you, the life you've built, the identity you wear like armor, disintegrates. You surrender. It's involuntary, inevitable. One moment you are here, awake, conscious, grounded in the world of form and matter. The next you are elsewhere, or perhaps nowhere at all. The world calls it sleep, a gentle word, a soft promise of peace, of restoration. The official narrative tells you it's a biological necessity, a process no different than digestion or circulation. Your body needs to recover from the ravages of the day. Your mind needs to sort through the debris of your waking life, organizing memories, trimming unnecessary data, preparing you to survive another cycle. Science claims it understands this process. Electrodes have been placed on skulls, brain waves have been mapped. Diagrams of REM phases are printed in textbooks and explained by experts in soft voices. And yet, for all the certainty they claim to have, they cannot tell you where you go when you sleep. They cannot explain why, for hours, your mind spins out realities that feel no less tangible than the life you wake to each morning. They cannot explain why a dream can pull you into a world you've never known, yet within seconds you're fluent in its language, bound by its laws, invested in its outcomes. They cannot tell you why you awaken from these places with your heart racing, your skin cold, tears staining your face, the echoes of words that no one spoke still ringing in your ears. The official explanation, you are told, is that these are hallucinations, meaningless images conjured by synapses firing at random, a side effect of a brain resting. But tell that to the person who dreams of a conversation that hasn't yet occurred, only to live it word for word days later. Tell that to the one who walks the streets of a city in their dreams, only to stand in that same place years later, remembering every crack in the pavement, every face in the crowd. You are expected to believe that dreams are fiction, byproducts of an overactive mind. But what if they are not? What if dreams are not mere stories but messages? What if they are not byproducts but doorways? And what if you pass through them every night, without knowing what it is you've crossed into? You don't like to think about it. Most people don't. Sleep is meant to be safe, a place of healing, not of reckoning. And so you trust the narrative that has been handed to you. You set alarms, you take melatonin, you track your sleep cycles on digital devices. You treat it like a maintenance schedule. You never ask why it is that you disappear when you sleep. You never ask where you go when you aren't here. But you should, because the truth is more complicated and far more unsettling. During sleep, the brain does not rest. This is a myth, a convenient one, but a myth nonetheless. In fact, there are periods during REM sleep where your brain lights up with electrical activity that surpasses its waking state. Regions responsible for emotion, vision, and memory become hypercharged. Meanwhile, logic, reason, and judgment fade into the background. This imbalance isn't accidental. Something is happening during these hours, something profound, something dangerous. Your brain stops filtering reality the way it does during your waking hours. The walls come down. The structures meant to protect you from overload are dismantled. What slips through those cracks is not always random, and it's not always yours. There are reports, millions of them, if you bother to look, of people dreaming things they shouldn't be able to know. Dreaming of disasters before they happen. Dreaming of people they've never met, whose faces later become real. Dreaming of truths they have no logical way of uncovering. Entire lifetimes lived in the span of a single night. Entire civilizations experienced in vivid detail, complete with languages never spoken on this earth. This isn't imagination. This is something else. The ancient world understood this. Long before science confined sleep to charts and scans, the old ones knew the truth. The Egyptians believed the soul left the body at night, traveling through other realms, gaining knowledge it could not access while tethered to flesh. In their hieroglyphs, they spoke of the Baya bird, your consciousness, taking flight as your body lay still. The Greeks told stories of Hypnos, god of sleep, brother to Thanatos, god of death. They saw the two as twins for a reason. Sleep was a rehearsal for the great departure. Indigenous tribes from every corner of the world told stories of dreamwalking, moving through worlds invisible to the waking mind. Dreams were sacred, messages from ancestors, visions of the future, warnings from the gods. In some traditions, they were viewed as the true life, while waking hours were dismissed as illusions, a temporary state before returning to the real world behind the veil. But you've forgotten that. You've been trained to forget. Somewhere along the way, your culture decided that only the tangible is real, what you can touch, measure, dissect. And yet, every night, your mind proves this belief wrong. You step through the same threshold the ancients knew, you enter the same door, and you dismiss it as nothing but sleep. But what happens when you start asking questions? Why, for instance, does the brain release dimethyltryptamine, DMT, every time you sleep? This is a substance so powerful that those who have taken it describe experiences that stretch beyond time and space. They speak of being flung into other dimensions, meeting entities, witnessing the construction of entire universes. They return changed, forever altered by what they've seen. DMT is one of the most potent hallucinogens known to science. Yet your brain produces it naturally, and it floods your system when you dream. Why? They'll tell you it's coincidence, an evolutionary accident. But you should know better by now. Nothing about the architecture of your mind is accidental. If DMT is there, it's there for a reason. And if it acts as a key to unlock other states of consciousness, then perhaps you've already been using it. You just don't remember. Or rather, you're not allowed to remember. Memory in dreams is a strange thing. Most vanish before you can grasp them. You wake up and they're gone, like smoke through your fingers. You've been told this is normal, that dreams are ephemeral, that the brain simply doesn't store them the same way. But ask yourself why. If sleep is a function, a biological necessity, why does it produce something so vivid, so emotional, so deeply real, and then strip it from your mind before you can understand it? Maybe forgetting is a defense mechanism. Maybe if you remembered everything, you'd question everything. You'd see the thin fabric of waking life for what it is, a construct. You'd remember the other worlds you visit, the other lives you live, and that kind of knowledge would unravel you. Or perhaps it would set you free. But freedom is dangerous. Those in control have no interest in you becoming free. And so, the narrative persists. Sleep is a biological necessity. Dreams are random. Forget them. Get on with your life. Pay your bills. Go to work. Don't ask why you spend a third of your life somewhere else. But you've started to ask. That's why you're here. Every night, you slip into darkness. You leave behind your name, your history, your obligations. You float in that space between worlds, and something happens. You felt it. The weightlessness. The sense that you've stepped outside the machinery of time. Sometimes you remember a face. A place that feels like home, though you've never seen it before. Sometimes you wake up and feel a hollow itch in your chest, as if you've left something behind. Or as if something followed you back. These are not fantasies. They are fractures. Glimpses through the cracks in the world you've been told is real. If you stop believing the lie long enough, you begin to see the pattern. You recognize the territory you visit when you sleep. You know the streets of those cities, the feel of their air, the color of their skis. You remember conversations with people whose names you've never known, but whose voices are familiar. You've stood in places where the rules of physics are meaningless, where thought shapes reality. You've done things you never thought possible, because in those places you are unbound. And the question that follows is not just, where do you go when you sleep? It's this: which world is the dream? If the places you visit and sleep are as real, if not more so, than the one you wake to, then what makes this life the primary one? Who told you this was the real world? And why did you believe them? You are more than a body, more than a collection of memories. You are something vast, something ancient. And you've been here before, not just in this life, but in countless others. Every night you return to where you came from, and each morning you forget, but you don't have to. The next time you close your eyes and drift away, remember this: you are not falling asleep. You are returning. You are crossing a threshold into a place your waking mind cannot hold. But your true self remembers. And if you listen, If you pay attention, if you refuse to forget, you may finally understand the truth. You were never meant to sleep. You were meant to awaken. There is a moment each night when you leave behind everything you know. Not your thoughts, not your memories, not the clutter of your day, but something deeper. Your very presence. You cross an invisible line where your body no longer matters and where time no longer binds you. You fade from this reality, from the world you call real, and step into something else. What waits on the other side of that divide isn't sleep, as you've been told to understand it. It's not rest. It's not recovery. It's something far stranger, something far older. Your consciousness undergoes a transformation. Science offers an explanation, but the words ring hollow. They say you're experiencing the REM stage of sleep, rapid eye movement, where your body becomes paralyzed to protect you from acting out dreams. They say your mind is playing tricks, sorting and organizing, consolidating memories into neat files. But even they admit they don't understand why your brain creates entire worlds while it's supposed to be resting. They don't understand why your mind becomes a theater of impossible visions, experiences that defy every law of nature. And they certainly don't understand why your brain releases dimethyltryptamine (DMT) every single night while you dream. DMT. You've heard whispers about it. A compound so potent, so powerful, that those who take it artificially describe it as an explosion of consciousness, a rocket to other dimensions, a tearing of the veil. It's not an ordinary experience, not even close. Time dissolves, space disappears, the body becomes irrelevant. Those who return from a DMT don't talk about hallucinations. They talk about places. They talk about other realms, about complex structures and landscapes that stretch beyond comprehension. They talk about entities, beings who greet them as if they've been expected. Some are compassionate, others are terrifying. Some communicate with thought alone. Some offer knowledge too vast for language. And this isn't rare. Those who have never met each other, who speak different languages and come from different cultures, report the same things, similar places, similar encounters, as if DMT doesn't create the experience, but merely reveals something already there. Now ask yourself this: if DMT can do that when it's introduced from the outside, what happens when your own brain releases it from within? What happens when, night after night, you flood your mind with a substance that breaks the boundaries of perception and reality? Why would your body produce a chemical so deeply tied to near-death experiences, out-of-body states, and spiritual revelations? What's the purpose of it? They'll tell you it's accidental, a fluke of evolution. They'll tell you the same about your dreams, random firings, a glitch in the machine. But deep down, you know better. Nothing about you is accidental. Nothing about your mind is random. If DMT is there, it's because it's supposed to be. And if it's tied to dreaming, then maybe your dreams are not accidents at all. Consider this: the same DMT that surges through your brain in REM sleep is released in massive quantities during birth and death. The two great transitions, the arrival and the departure. Science has confirmed this. It floods your brain when you enter this world, and it overwhelms you when you leave. In between, it drips into your dreams like a silent key unlocking doors you've forgotten how to open. But open them you do. When you dream, you drift through visions that feel more real than anything you know when you're awake. You visit places you've never seen, yet you navigate them with ease. You hold conversations with people you've never met, but their voices are familiar, their eyes known. You live entire lives in a single night. Years pass behind your closed eyelids, and when you wake, only moments have gone by. Time collapses in dreams, it bends, it warps. The ordinary rules no longer apply. And it's not just personal experience. We've known this for centuries. The ancient Egyptians believed that sleep was the realm of the gods, that the soul left the body each night and traveled to distant lands where it could commune with forces beyond human comprehension. The Greeks told stories of Hypnos guiding mortals into sleep, where they would meet Morpheus, the god of dreams, who shaped the reality they would experience. In India, yogis practiced conscious dreaming, using sleep as a tool to explore higher dimensions. Even today, indigenous cultures speak of the dream time, a place outside time and space, where the ancestors live and the laws of the universe are written. And now, modern science circles back, hesitating to admit what the ancients knew all along. Your mind doesn't just create illusions while you sleep, it shifts states. It steps outside the narrow bandwidth of waking life and tunes into something far more vast. DMT is the signal booster, and your dreams are the transmission. But there's something unsettling about this. If dreams are access points, gateways to somewhere else, why don't we remember them? Why do most dreams vanish seconds after waking? Why does the mind strip them away, leaving behind only fragments, if anything at all? You've been told it's normal, that the brain deprioritizes dream memory because dreams are nonsense. But ask yourself this: if they are meaningless, why erase them? Why bother? If dreams were nothing more than noise, wouldn't they fade naturally, like static on an untuned radio? Why does the mind work so hard to suppress them? There's a theory, whispered in the darker corners of psychology and parapsychology. The brain, they say, is not failing to remember dreams. It's protecting you from them. Protecting you from the knowledge they hold. From the truth that could shatter the illusion you call reality. Because when you dream, you remember who you are. You remember what you are. And if you brought that knowledge back with you, you wouldn't be able to live this life the way you're supposed to. You wouldn't obey the rules. You wouldn't believe in the world as you've been told it exists. You'd see the cracks in the program. You'd recognize the simulation for what it is. Some people do remember. Some people wake up with knowledge they didn't have the day before. Some people carry messages, instructions, warnings. Some people dream of events that haven't yet happened and watch them unfold with eerie precision. And some are haunted by what they've seen, unable to return to the comforting lie of waking life. But most forget. Most are designed to forget. Yet, even in forgetting, there are echoes. Feelings that don't belong to this world. Memories that rise unbidden, triggered by a sound, a scent, a place you've never been but recognize instantly. The sense that you've lived this before. That you've stood in this exact moment in another life. Another time. Déjà vu, they call it. A glitch. But perhaps it's not. Perhaps it's the residue of another version of yourself slipping through the seams. Perhaps it's the echo of another world bleeding into this one. And if that's true, what is waking life, really? You've been told that consciousness is the byproduct of the brain, that thought, awareness, selfhood. All of it is chemical reactions, neurons firing in an organic machine. But DMT suggests otherwise. Dreams suggest otherwise. Consciousness, it seems, isn't confined to the skull. It's not bound by the physical body. It's not even bound by time. In dreams, you are outside of time. You move backward and forward. You visit futures that haven't happened. You relive moments that were never yours. And the experience is seamless, as if time never mattered to begin with. What if it doesn't? Quantum physics has begun to hint at this. That time is not linear, but a loop. That the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. That your consciousness moves through them, like a needle on a record, tracing one song while the entire album exists all at once. And when you sleep, when DMT floods your mind and the barriers fall away, you lift the needle. You drift between tracks. You experience things that your waking mind isn't designed to process. And when you return, you are scrubbed clean, reset, reinserted into the program. You forget. But sometimes, you don't. Sometimes you wake up and you remember the dream. You remember the place. You carry it with you, and it changes you in ways you can't explain. And that is dangerous. The system you live in, the reality you think you know, depends on you believing in its rules, on you accepting its limits, on you forgetting what you are. But sleep is the breach. Sleep is the crack in the wall. And dreams are the messages that slip through. So ask yourself, why are you being told not to pay attention? Why are you encouraged to forget? Why are dreams dismissed as fantasy when they have the power to change lives, to predict futures, to connect you to something greater than yourself? Perhaps because if you remembered, you wouldn't play the game anymore. You wouldn't stay asleep while awake. You'd wake up for real, and the world you'd see wouldn't be the one you were taught to believe in. It would be bigger. It would be stranger. It would be yours. Every night, you are given a choice. You close your eyes and surrender. You drift into darkness, into silence, into sleep. But on the other side, there's a door. You can walk through it blind, as you always have. Or you can open your eyes. You can remember, and if you dare to hold on to the dream, to bring it back with you, you may find that you're not dreaming at all. You may find that you've finally woken up. You have lived this moment before. Maybe you don't remember it, not entirely. Maybe it comes back to you in a flash, an echo that slips through your mind like smoke. But there it is. You've stood here. You've said these words. You've felt this exact sensation in your bones. And when it happens, you dismiss it. You call it déjà vu, a trick of the mind, a glitch in the brain's wiring. That's what you've been taught. It's easier that way. Easier to file it away under something science claims to understand than to confront the possibility that you are experiencing a ripple from somewhere or someone else. But what if it's more than a trick? What if you've lived this before, not in some vague symbolic way, but literally? What if your mind isn't replaying an old memory, but recalling a glimpse you caught in a dream that showed you something real long before you stood in this moment? There are countless stories, if you care to look. People who dream of tragedies, only to watch them unfold in waking life. A plane crash, seen in vivid detail days before it happens. A conversation with a stranger, spoken word for word months before it ever takes place. The sinking of ships, the death of loved ones. Whole wars glimpsed in sleep. Some of the most famous figures in history have spoken about them. Abraham Lincoln dreamed of his own funeral just days before his assassination. The passengers of the Titanic spoke of ominous visions before boarding the ship. These aren't isolated stories. They are patterns. A thread that runs through the human experience. Ignored, dismissed, ridiculed, because no one has the courage to ask what they really mean. And if they mean what they seem to, then everything you've been told about reality collapses. Dreams, you've been taught, are fragments. Disjointed nonsense pulled from the refused bin of the subconscious. Your mind stitching together stray memories, unresolved emotions, flashing them behind your closed eyelids as your body lies paralyzed in the dark. That's the narrative. That's the explanation. But it doesn't account for the dreams that predict the future. It doesn't account for the precision of these visions, the detail, the clarity. Random synapses firing don't explain how you can dream of a place you've never seen, only to walk through it days or years later, knowing exactly where each object will be, how the light will hit the wall, what someone will say next. Randomness doesn't explain why dreams can be so exact they leave you breathless when they unfold in the real world. So what's happening? What's the mechanism behind this impossible knowledge? The first lie you've been told is that time moves in only one direction. Forward. A straight line from past to future. That's how you experience it when you're awake. One second after another, all laid out like beads on a string. But time, as we understand it in physics, is not a line. It's not even linear. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, layered on top of one another. Quantum theory tells us this. The future isn't something that hasn't happened yet. It's something that already exists. You just haven't reached it. But in dreams, you're not bound by the rules of waking life. You aren't anchored to the timeline you move through when your eyes are open. You drift. You float between moments, between possibilities. You visit places you haven't been yet. You remember things that haven't happened. Because in dreams, your consciousness isn't limited to one track. It moves freely across the expanse of time. You felt it. In a dream, hours can pass in the blink of an eye. You can live entire lifetimes in the space of a night. You can grow old, love, fight, die, and wake up to find that no time has passed at all. And when you try to reconcile that with the strict passage of time in your waking life, it doesn't add up. Because the two aren't governed by the same laws. Dreaming breaks the illusion of linearity. And sometimes, in that breaking, you see pieces of the future, but there's more. If time isn't linear, if it's an ocean instead of a road, then it's not just about seeing the future. It's about seeing possible futures, possibilities, potential timelines. And that's where things become complicated. Because if you've dreamed of an event before it happens, does that mean it was always going to happen? That the future is fixed, predetermined, and you're just following a script that's already been written? Or does it mean you saw one version of the future, one path among many? And if that's the case, then what determines which future unfolds? Some people believe that dreams aren't just passive glimpses. They're maps, warnings, clues. That in dreaming of a future event, you're being shown a thread you can either follow or break. That's why some people have precognitive dreams of disasters and manage to avoid them. They change their plans. They skip the flight. They don't board the ship. They survive, and others don't. Because they don't listen. They dismiss the dream as meaningless. You've probably done this yourself. Had a dream about something small, inconsequential. A conversation with a stranger, a moment in a room you've never been in before. And then it happens. Days later, weeks, maybe months, and you get that sick twist in your gut, that flash of memory. You knew this was coming. You saw it. But you didn't understand it at the time. You didn't listen. And when it happens, all you can do is stand there and watch it unfold, powerless. But you're not powerless. You've been convinced you are. You've been told you can't change what's coming, that the future is beyond your control. And so you sleepwalk through your life, ignoring the warnings that come in the night. But you don't have to. Dreams are messages, yes, but they're also tools. If you learn to use them, they can help you navigate the ocean of time. They can help you steer toward one possibility over another. They can help you alter the outcome. But to do that, you have to wake up inside the dream. You have to pay attention. Some traditions have known this for centuries. Tibetan Buddhists practice dream yoga, learning to control their dreams not as entertainment but as training for life and death. Shamans in indigenous cultures use dreams to commune with spirits, to receive guidance, to see what's coming and what needs to be done. They don't dismiss dreams as nonsense. They treat them as sacred. But here, in the modern world, you've been taught to ignore them, to laugh them off, to forget them as soon as you wake. You've been trained to stay blind. But what happens when you stop being blind? When you start listening to what your dreams are telling you? You start seeing patterns. You start noticing when the dreams you have aren't random. You start recognizing the symbols, the warnings, the messages buried in the imagery. You start realizing that some of these dreams aren't about the past or the present. They're about what comes next. And when you listen, you can act. This is why ancient cultures treated dreamers as seers. Why prophets spoke of visions that came in the night. Why entire civilizations believed that those who paid attention to their dreams could alter fate itself. But there's another layer, a deeper one. If time is not linear, if all moments exist at once, then it's not just about seeing the future. It's about understanding that your consciousness exists beyond time. That you aren't trapped in one life, one moment, one identity. That you're bigger than that. Dreams remind you of this. They show you lives you've never lived, but which feel as real as this one. They show you futures you've never imagined. They show you versions of yourself that you don't recognize, but know instinctively are you. Because you are not just one person in one life. You are all of them. You exist across every possibility, every outcome. And when you dream, you're not just remembering. You're experiencing those other selves. The dreams that show you the future may not be predicting what will happen in this life. They may be showing you what's already happening in another, a parallel timeline, a different version of reality, and sometimes those versions bleed into each other. That's why you feel the familiarity. That's why the moment repeats. That's why you know something is coming before it does. You've lived it before. Somewhere. Someone. And this isn't theory. It's experience. It's the knowing you carry inside you when you wake up from a dream and can't shake the feeling that it wasn't just a dream, that it was something more. You're right, it was. And if you're willing to listen, to watch, to remember, you can use it. You can step outside the illusion of time. You can see the threads and choose which one to follow. But to do that, you have to wake up. Not just in the dream, but in your life. You have to stop dismissing what your subconscious is telling you. You have to stop ignoring the warnings. You have to stop pretending this world is all there is. Because it's not. The dream world is just as real as this one. Maybe more so. And the things you see there aren't hallucinations, they're windows, they're signposts, they're messages from another version of you. And if you listen, they can change everything. So, tonight, when you close your eyes, pay attention. Watch where you go. Watch what you see. And when you wake, don't forget. Because you've been here before, and you'll be here again. And next time, you'll know why. You wake up, but you can't move. Your eyes are open. Your mind is awake, aware, screaming at your body to respond, but it won't. You are pinned, paralyzed. There's a weight pressing against your chest, cold and suffocating, heavy like stone. You try to call out, but your voice is trapped inside your throat. And then you see it. Something is in the room with you. It's there, standing at the edge of your bed or in the corner, a silhouette darker than the darkness itself. You don't know how you know it's watching you, but you do. Its presence floods the room. You feel it like a second skin, tight and suffocating. It doesn't move yet. You sense intention. A consciousness ancient and vast, staring back you through black eyes or no eyes at all. You are seen, and that knowledge freezes you in a way your body's paralysis cannot explain. You are exposed, vulnerable. Then, just as suddenly you can breathe again. The weight lifts. Your body jerks back into motion. You sit up, gasping, heart pounding as if you've just escaped drowning. The room is empty. Nothing is there. But the feeling lingers. The certainty that something was. They call this sleep paralysis. That's the official term. The rational explanation goes something like this: your brain wakes up before your body. The chemical process that keeps you paralyzed during REM sleep, designed to prevent you from acting out your dreams, lags behind. You become conscious, but the body is still frozen in that chemical grip. Meanwhile, you're half dreaming, half awake, and your mind creates hallucinations to fill the terrifying gap. It sounds neat, scientific, clinical, a malfunction of brain chemistry, a misfire in the transition between sleeping and waking. But that explanation doesn't hold. Because the thing you see isn't random. Because millions of people, separated by continents, cultures, and time, have described the same figure, the same presence, the same crushing fear, and they've done so for centuries. In medieval Europe, they called it the Old Hag, a witch-like being who sat on your chest, stealing your breath as you lay frozen. In Japan, it's known as kanashibari, a force that binds you, paralyzing you in place while spirits close in. In South America, it's called the pisadera, a crone who creeps across rooftops and sits on the chests of sleeping victims. And then there's the Hat Man, a tall figure in a brimmed hat, appearing in modern accounts of sleep paralysis, always silent, always watching. He's been seen in the United States, in Australia, in Eastern Europe. Children and adults describe him with uncanny similarity. This isn't a coincidence. It's not random neural activity. It's not the brain misfiring. It's something else. What if, in that moment between sleep and wakefulness, something happens to the veil that separates this world from others? What if, instead of your brain creating these beings, you're finally able to see them? What if they're always there, watching from the edges, hidden by the noise of your waking mind? And it's only in paralysis, in the silence of your body's frozen state, that you become aware of their presence. Sleep paralysis doesn't feel like a dream. You know when you're dreaming. Dreams are fluid, shifting. They dissolve when you wake. But this is something else entirely. You are aware, hyper-aware. You can describe the room in perfect detail. You can feel the texture of the sheets under your hands, even as your fingers refuse to move. You can hear the hum of electricity in the walls, the faint sound of cars outside. And still, there's something there that shouldn't be. Something more real than anything you've ever dreamed. And the fear you feel isn't normal fear. It's primal, ancient, a terror older than language, deep in your bones. It's the fear of being hunted in the dark. It's the knowing, without doubt, that something means you harm. Science cannot explain this. It offers theories, suggestions, but it cannot explain why across millennia, across cultures that never touched, humans have described the same shadow figures. It cannot explain why so many feel the presence, not just see it. Why they sense intelligence in the darkness. Why it doesn't feel like a dream at all, but an encounter. And if you look deeper, if you step beyond the clinical, You'll find traditions that have always known what sleep paralysis really is. In some ancient belief systems, these entities are called night demons. In others, they are interdimensional travelers, beings that exist alongside us but are usually invisible. Some traditions speak of them as collectors of energy, feeding off fear, drawn to the liminal space between sleeping and waking when your defenses are at their weakest. There are those who say sleep paralysis is a doorway, and these beings are the gatekeepers, or the predators waiting on the threshold. If you've experienced it, you know it's not your imagination. The weight on your chest, the cold in the room, the overwhelming sense that something ancient has turned its gaze toward you. This isn't a malfunction, it's not a glitch in sleep cycles. It's something more deliberate, something targeted. Ask yourself this: why is paralysis part of the experience? Why can't you move? Why can't you scream? Why are you trapped, aware but helpless? Because they need you to be. Because you're easier to observe that way. Because your consciousness, in that state, has slipped out of alignment with your body. You are neither fully here nor fully there. You are between worlds, and in between you're vulnerable. Some people report being touched, feeling hands press against them, being dragged towards something they can't see. Others hear voices, words they don't understand, whispered directly into their skulls. Some are shown visions, terrible things, or images that don't make sense until later. There are those who claim they've left their bodies entirely during sleep paralysis, watching themselves from the ceiling, unable to stop what was happening below. And then there are those who've learned to fight back. You can, they say, break the paralysis. If you focus on moving just one small part of your body, your fingertip, your toe, you can snap yourself back into control. But more than that, some say you can confront the shadow figures, speak to them, demand they leave. In some cases they vanish, in others they react, surprised that you can see them, that you're not helpless. Why would an imaginary hallucination respond to you? Why would it show intelligence? Why would it be surprised? Because it's not imaginary, because it's real. The phenomenon of sleep paralysis might be the clearest evidence we have that there is more to this world than we can perceive in waking life. That there are beings, conscious entities, that exist just beyond the thin veil of human perception. Beings who watch, who wait, who perhaps feed on the energy we give off in these vulnerable moments. And if that's true, what else is true? What happens in those moments when you're between worlds? When your body is frozen but your mind is wide open? Are you being observed, examined, harvested? Or is it something worse? Maybe they're not there by accident. Maybe they're part of something larger. Maybe sleep paralysis is a symptom of something we're not supposed to understand. Or maybe it's an invitation. You've heard the stories of astral projection, of leaving the body behind, traveling through other realms. Many who experience sleep paralysis believe it's the first step, that the paralysis isn't a trap. It's a moment of potential. If you stay calm, if you focus, you can leave your body entirely, float above it, travel, visit places you cannot reach in waking life. Some believe the shadow entities are there to stop you from doing exactly that. And if they are, you have to ask why. Why would they try to keep you tethered? Why would they frighten you into stillness, into forgetting? Because they don't want you to know what you're capable of. Because they don't want you to remember. Sleep paralysis, at its core, is a reminder that you are more than flesh and blood. That your consciousness exists beyond the body. That there are other realms, other beings, other truths hidden just out of reach. And for a moment, you are close to them. Close enough to see. Close enough to be seen. You will be told it's all in your head. You will be told it's just a trick of the brain. But the fear you felt was real. The presence was real. And the next time it happens, you can choose to be afraid. Or you can choose to see. You can choose to wake up, even when you're frozen. Because they can only hold you still if you let them. They can only watch if you refuse to open your eyes. You don't have to be trapped. You don't have to be helpless. The next time you wake and can't move, remember this. You are on the threshold. You are on the edge of something vast. And if you're brave enough, if you refuse to be paralyzed by fear, you can cross it. And then they'll be afraid of you. There's a moment inside certain dreams where something changes. You've been moving through the dream as you always do. Reacting, watching, floating through strange landscapes and impossible events, until suddenly, you realize, you're dreaming. The world around you isn't real. You know it in an instant, and with that knowledge comes something extraordinary: control, power, freedom. You can fly, shape the world, call forth anything your mind desires. You bend reality without effort. You rewrite existence with a single thought. This is lucid dreaming. And if you've ever experienced it even once, you know it changes everything. You wake up after a lucid dream with an unshackable feeling. A strange weight in your chest, like you've seen behind the curtain of something you weren't meant to understand. Because if your mind can create entire worlds in your sleep, complete with laws, sensations, emotions, even other people who seem entirely autonomous, then what does that say about the world you wake up to every morning? What makes waking life any different? When you dream, the world feels real, solid. You can touch the ground beneath your feet, feel the wind on your skin. You can taste food, experience love, even feel pain. The people you meet in those dreams can surprise you, argue with you, laugh at your jokes. They seem conscious, alive. But when you wake, they're gone. You tell yourself it wasn't real. And yet it was. If you can build worlds like that inside your mind during sleep, without effort, without even trying, what if waking life is just another layer of the dream? This is an idea as old as human thought. The ancient Hindus called it Maya, the grand illusion. They taught that the world you experience is not ultimate reality but a projection, a dream crafted by the mind of God or consciousness itself. The Buddhists, too, spoke of life as a dream. In Tibetan dream yoga, practitioners train themselves to wake up inside their dreams, not as an end goal, but as a step toward awakening inside their lives, because both are illusions. Both are temporary, mutable, unreal. Modern science and philosophy have circled around this truth for decades. Simulation theory posits that what you experience as reality is nothing more than a complex simulation, code running in some incomprehensible machine. You are an avatar inside it, living a life according to the program, never questioning whether what you see is authentic. But lucid dreaming gives you a glimpse, a taste of what it means to wake up inside a system that isn't what it seems. When you become lucid in a dream, you see the rules for what they are arbitrary, breakable, imposed by your own expectations. Gravity can be ignored. Time can be reversed. Death becomes meaningless. You are free because you know the truth. And if you can wake up inside a dream, maybe you can wake up inside your life. The rules you've accepted in waking life, rules about who you are, what you can do, what is possible, are just as arbitrary, just as malleable, just as dreamlike. You've been told that the world is solid, that you are a finite being, that time moves in one direction and death is the end. But if lucid dreaming teaches you anything, it's that these are just parameters in a system designed to keep you focused, to keep you small. And the moment you recognize them as constructs, they lose their power. So what happens when you wake up? For most, it never happens. They sleepwalk through their lives just as they do in their dreams, unaware that they are dreaming, reacting to what's around them without ever questioning the nature of it. But for the few who do wake up, everything changes. They become lucid inside reality. And then the game shifts. There are ancient traditions that teach this very skill, not as metaphor, but as practice. Dream yoga, shamanic journeying, Gnostic teachings about awakening from the prison of the material world. Even modern science is catching up, studying consciousness and questioning whether the universe itself is a simulation. But these ideas aren't new. They're ancient. Humanity has always known there was something beyond the veil. You've known it too. That feeling you get when you stare at the sky and sense that there's something more, just out of reach. When you're alone in the night and the silence hums with meaning you can't explain. When you wake from a dream that feels more real than anything you've known and wonder if you left a piece of yourself behind. You have. Because you're not just here, too. You're everywhere. You've only forgotten. Lucid dreaming is the crack in the wall. It's the back door in the system. And it's not just about flying or controlling a dream world. It's about remembering who you are. An infinite, boundless consciousness playing a game inside a construct. A dreamer who fell asleep so deeply that you forgot you were dreaming. But you're waking up, and when you do, you see it for what it is. The patterns, the loops, the way reality bends in response to your attention, your belief. You realize that thought creates form, that emotion creates experience, that everything you've ever been told about the limits of reality was a lie designed to keep you here, asleep. And now, you have a choice. You can stay asleep. Pretend you didn't notice. Go back to the comforting illusion that this world is fixed, that you are powerless. Or you can step through the door. You can live lucidly. You can reshape your life the same way you reshape a dream, by seeing through the false rules and reclaiming your power. But be warned, waking up isn't comfortable. It means leaving behind certainty. It means confronting the possibility that nothing is what you thought it was. Not even you. It means walking through a world of people who are still dreaming and knowing they won't understand. It means choosing truth over comfort. And once you wake up, you can't go back. Those who've practiced lucid dreaming for years often describe a moment of transformation. At first, they control the dream world for pleasure, flying, creating, experiencing joy beyond imagination. But then something changes. They begin to seek something deeper. They ask questions. They look for meaning. And sometimes, they find it. They find beings inside the dream who are aware of them, who speak truths that shatter their understanding. They receive knowledge about themselves, about reality, about existence, that stays with them long after they wake. They realize they aren't dreaming alone, that there are other consciousnesses in the dream. Some are parts of themselves, some are something else. And sometimes, they wake up inside a dream and discover they aren't in control at all. That someone or something is watching them, that the dream is watching them back. Because the moment you become aware, you become visible. The moment you wake up, you step out of hiding, and what you find depends on how ready you are to see. You are dreaming now. Even as you read this, you are inside a construct. The walls of your home, the gravity that holds you, the passage of time ticking forward. These are the parameters of your program, the code you've agreed to believe in. But you can change it. You can bend it. You can rewrite it. Lucid living isn't about defying physics. It's about transcending the limits you've been told to accept. It's about recognizing that you are not a body. You are not a name. You are not this story. You are the dreamer. And when you take control, when you remember, you become something they can't control, something they can't predict. That's why they've taught you to forget. That's why they've trained you to believe in limits. Because if you wake up, the dream changes. And it's happening more and more. People are waking up inside their dreams and realizing they're more than they've been told. They're seeing the cracks in the illusion. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. The question isn't whether this is a dream. The question is whether you're ready to wake up. You have the choice. You always have. You can keep living inside a dream someone else wrote for you. Or you can take the pen and write your own. Every time you close your eyes at night, you rehearse for this. Every time you wake up inside a dream, you practice, you remember, you prepare. And one day soon you won't wake up in your bed. You'll wake up in yourself, and you'll know. You always had the power. You always were the dreamer. And now you're awake.